Right, welcome to Rein in Horse Racing in association with Race and Stay. We're here for our Christmas Festival review, which I think if we went into that much detail, probably take us about 2 hours, 3 hours to go for everything. But we're going to try and condense it the best we can. And to do that, there's myself and there's also Bo. We're going to look through the big races, give our opinions on the outcomes, and just discuss a little bit of the Ante Post movement as well that's happened on the back of it. But I think, obviously, as usual, Christmas time brings out some of the best action. First of all, Merry Christmas, hope you've had a good one. And secondly, just how good has the racing been?
Yeah, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you and all the listeners. Yeah, the racing I thought was superb. Some proper clashes, the likes of Ballyburn and Gino and Lossiemouth and Constitution Hill. They're clashes that we really don't get to see very often. Usually just reserved for Cheltenham, that sort of top quality clash. So it was really good to see them at the Christmas period. It was like a nice little Christmas present for us all, wasn't it? So yeah, thoroughly enjoyed the racing that we had.
Yeah, and fair play to Willie Mullins as well for bringing him over. We'll crack straight on. I think there's probably only one place to start, and that's looking at the 2 mile hurdling division now. I think that picture seems to be changing all the time. But we'll start off. We'll have a discussion about the Christmas hurdle. Also, Constitution Hill back out, beating Lossiemouth by 2.5 lengths in the end. Burdett Road finishing in third. First of all, how did you see Constitution Hill's comeback? How did you go away from race before you saw brighter days ahead? How was your head after watching this race?
Yeah, I mean, just taking the Brighter Days Ahead race out of it for a second, I thought Lossiemouth always looked like she was hard at work. I know it's what they've since said, but she just didn't look like she could go the pace at all. I think with a performance like her and other performances we'll talk about, I do question if there's something going on with the Mullins yard, maybe a virus or something going around. But she finished the race strongly, and she was only beaten 2.5 lengths. I know that was sort of Constitution Hill was eased down though. But the one thing I would say when I came out of the race, I was just so pleased that he was back to some sort of form of what we were hoping he might be. And I think he just showed his class, and he's going to improve for that because it was his first run in a year. So he's definitely going to improve, and hopefully, I'm not sure what the plan is next for him. I don't know if they're going to go straight to Cheltenham. I'm not sure if they've said anything, but yeah, hopefully we just see an even more improved Constitution Hill next time out.
I think Nicky meant he did mutter the international, but I don't, whether that was just maybe said on the spur of the moment, I'm not too sure. He did mention the international, which I think is that the end of January, is it?
Yeah, that's back at Cheltenham, isn't it?
Which is obviously back at Cheltenham. Now, whether he wants to try and get him a run at Cheltenham maybe beforehand, I'm not too sure.
I was just going to say they talk about this bounce factor with horses, and it normally only affects them on the second run back from an absence. So there is that to play with, which I'm sure people will start talking about, and that will be the big, or is he going to bounce? But yeah, you couldn't help but be mightily impressed with what you saw.
I've been a little bit surprised with the fallout of this race. When I was sort of looking on X and looking at all the sort of social media stuff, it seemed like there was a lot more focus on the Lossiemouth performance rather than on the Constitution Hill performance. People was like, "Oh, really pleased to see him back," and this, and I think a little bit more to this. I was really impressed by how he came back. The pace that race was run at was extraordinary. Obviously, it's a quick track around Kempton, and I think to do what he did, to get to hit the front two out. I mean, Burdett Road, I know made a mistake at the last, and I was, by the way, impressed with Burdett Road, but I think he made a mistake at last. I think he was just flat out. I think he just given everything. I think he was really tired. But people say, "No, well, I think next time out, obviously, Lossiemouth, if they can set a little bit better, then she'll obviously come on for the run and this." But then I'm there thinking, well, so will Constitution Hill. This is a horse that's been out for over a year and has come back and done that. Now, I would say, in my opinion, that there's more improvements come out of Constitution Hill than what there is to come out of Lossiemouth. I mean, Lossiemouth, I totally agree with you. I think she's completely swept off her feet for the first 3 or 4 films, if not a little bit more. I saw something that Kevin Blake had put out. I don't know the exact, but he was basically saying that race was run faster than what she's ever experienced ever in her life. And I think compared to the that grace that she ran in, it was something like 80 odd lengths quicker by a certain point. It was something mad anyway. Check it out if anybody has time on Kevin Blake's Twitter. But I just don't think she could handle the pace, and I think she was always going to stay on at the end, because obviously, in my opinion, she's a 2.5 miler. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
Now we'll try and tie that in then now with the Neville Hotels hurdle that we saw on what day we had? Sunday, with brighter days ahead. Now, before I put my opinion in, how did you see that race as a whole? I mean, I'm struggling to understand how she's improved so much and Stateman's regressed so much.
Yeah.
I'm struggling to sort of get my head around that, but you can't, when you look at the actual fractions, look at the numbers, it sort of stacks up.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's an element of Stateman being under the weather maybe and not performing to his true ability. But then I also just think they got the tactics absolutely spot on. They knew that she was going to be able to stay and keep up some sort of a gallop, and if they could get far enough away, I mean, I'm sure they didn't expect to be able to get that far away. But yeah, I think it was a mixture of the two. I think it was a mixture of brilliant tactics from Gordon and his team, and then also Stateman being slightly under the weather. I wouldn't really. If you're a Stateman lover or a Stateman backer for Cheltenham, I would just put a line through that run. I wouldn't really think too much of it. He's obviously a bigger price now for the champion hurdle. In terms of the winner, she's just an amazing mare, brilliant, and that was a brilliant performance. I mean, you could see the way that King of Kingsfield kind of like folded. She's obviously kept up some almighty gallop to keep going to the line. But the one thing they've said that they're going to the mare's hurdle. I know people want to see these clashes, but they want winners, and they think that's their best chance at a winner. And I think they're probably right. I think they're probably right in the fact that that is their best chance of winning. I'm not sure she'd get past Constitution Hill if we saw him in the same form. And I also think it's a stiff ass to beat Lossiemouth around Cheltenham as well. I know we all want to see that magnificent clash of the three of them, but or four of them if you include Stateman. But
one thing I've took from it as well, Bo, and I don't know if anybody else has, but with them saying now that she will have an entry at the DRF, that the likelihood is she's going to go straight to Cheltenham. I think after having to, I mean, I know she won by 30 odd lengths, but it was still a tough race that she's had.
Yeah,
I mean, she's gone full pelt at it. Her first race, obviously, she battled with Stateman all the way to the line as well. I think coming off the back of two runs like that to then go for a champion hurdle might just be a little bit too much. So I think they've probably had this in mind for a while to sort of say, look, we'll stick King of Kingsfield in here. We'll give her the lead that she wants to try and obviously go past. Like you've said, I don't think they expect it to be as easy as what it was. But I think they've had this in mind for a while. I just think the nature of the distance that they've put between them and Stateman is probably the only faction to them thinking, well, shall we or shall we not? If they'd have beat Stateman by 2 lengths, I don't think there'd be even a discussion. I think it'd just been, we're going to go for the mares. But it's the distance that she's put between them. But like you said there, I mean, Winterfog's not a better horse than Stateman, and Winterfog's beat Stateman home.
Yeah, I think there's an element of it that he definitely underperformed. He's 11-1 now for the champion hurdle, which I'm looking at. I mean, it's not a bet that I fancy because I think, as I said before, I think Constitution Hill is just going to be pretty solid in this race.
It's fascinating, to be fair, now when you look at the champion hurdle picture, like we will do now for a couple of minutes. But best prices: Constitution 8-11, Brighter Days 11-2, Lossiemouth 7-1, Stateman 11s. Amsterdam 12, and then obviously it's 20-1 bar of everything else. But I'm of the opinion with you. I think Constitution Hill now is actually rock solid after what we saw the other day. I think Lossiemouth should have beaten Constitution Hill based on everything. That she'd had the run, she had the fitness. That was her opportunity to beat Constitution Hill. I don't think she'll reverse the form. Stateman looks currently anyway looks a bit of a funny one to try and judge. Like you say, if Bright Days Ahead is so good, then in effect Stateman got within a length of the first time out. So there's also that factor to put in as well. But I think Constitutional's rock solid. I think once one of the mares commits to going to the mare's hurdle, possibly even both of them, depending on how Lossiemouth performs next time out, you could be looking at quite a short price champion hurdle again, and I'd be completely rock solid on Constitution Hill. And I think if anybody is considering Ante Post bet at this stage now, you're not going to know until probably the Saturday, Sunday before Cheltenham. They'll keep him in both just in case Constitution Hill does get pulled out. So they'll both get entered into both. They'll both be there right until the very end, in my opinion, anyway. Even though they'll be leaning towards one. But we'll stick with Kempton, and we'll stick with Nick Henderson and Willie Mullins, and we'll jump onto the wayward lad, Novice Chase. Sergino beating Ballyburn 7.5 length in, I suppose, what you can only describe as a canter, really. He absolutely pinged every single fence, hacked around. I don't think Ballyburn actually jumped that bad until the last. I just don't think he could keep up with Sergino, who is clearly an out-and-out 2-miler, and Ballyburn just isn't. Was still a very good performance though by Sergino. How impressed were you, Bo?
I was, it's hard not to be impressed by something like that, isn't it? You kind of just jumped like a stag, and then sped up when he needed to. What was the distance? Like 7 lengths, was it?
7.5 lengths in the end.
Yeah, 7.5 lengths. I mean, it's hard not to be impressed there. He looked special. The one thing I would say, I totally agree with you. I don't think Ballyburn actually jumped that badly. I think a lot of them, he was jumping alongside him. The exuberance of Sergino probably at every fence meant a bigger winning distance at the end. The one thing I would say, it doesn't seem like people are talking about the fact that Sergino was obviously getting £6, which might not make much of a difference anyway. But I do think that gives you an angle into the race if you're a Ballyburn fan. Ballyburn's 16-1 now. They keep talking about going up in trip with it. I don't think they need to. I don't think they need to go up to the Browns. I think he could come here and be competitive. Sergino might just be that special sort of Sprinter Sacra 2.0 and go and beat them. But I think they could definitely give him a good race around Cheltenham, which obviously Ballyburn was mightily impressive in the Ballymore last year. Off level weights, I would be really interested to see that. Obviously, we've got Majborough coming out in the next couple of days. He's 11-10 for the race in Naas. He's 9-2 for the race here at Cheltenham. He's a 4-year-old as well, so he won't be getting the weight allowance at Cheltenham either. So you'd want to see him put away that field in Naas, and then we might have a proper contest on our hands. But for me, I was very impressed with Sergino, and I have to tip my hat to you in our Ante Post series. You put Sergino up at 8s, which obviously looks a very nice price now, 10-11 best price, and sort of mentioned the double as well. So it's very nice Ante Post shooting.
Well, they all look nice, but they've got to come in, haven't they? I think this is a bit of a flip reversal of the Christmas hurdle, where I think in the back of everyone's minds, I think everyone thought that Sergino had a very good chance of beating Ballyburn based on the 2 mile, based on the track, based on the weight allowance, etc. But I don't think anybody could really have anticipated the way and the manner that he won. I mean, he just came away, didn't he? I mean, it literally was a matter of just a hack and away we go. I don't think £6 will make a massive difference. I mean, obviously, Cheltenham form, I know Ballyburn obviously won the, what was it called last year? Was it the Gallagher's last year or whatever it was called? I can't remember what it was called now. Whichever race that was. That's it, the Barring Bingham won it last year. I know he won that at Cheltenham, also looked mightily impressive. You could almost argue that one of Sergino's best performances were against Burdett Road at Cheltenham, and he absolutely trounced him. And now look at the Burdett Road form, and so you can, depends on how much you want to go into all that, I suppose, with the hurdle form. But I think one of the biggest things about the Arkle picture now is that if for whatever reason Majborough doesn't perform on Sunday, which listen, I'm sure he will do, but if he doesn't, that Arkle could become, as we all mentioned on our show in November, could become again another 5-field 1-4 on shot very easily and very quickly, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think touching on that, I mean, you were pretty adamant and keen that it would cut up, and I was on the complete opposite side of the fence, saying there was all this quality in here. It's definitely
if we quick look at this now, Bo.
There's a good chance that Sergino scares everything off, isn't there?
Well, if you look at this now, so you've got Sergino at 10-11, Majborough 9-2, in the pocket 10s, Loderswood 14s. Ballyburn is actually still 5th favourite at 16-1. You then got Firefox, and then after Firefox, Il Atlantique, that looks like it wants further. Imperi Passer is probably not going to go. So, and then after that, you're going to your 33-1 shots. So, it's either going to be full of no-hopers without sounding awful, or just going to be a 3 or 4 runner race. I mean, Majborough is obviously the big one. Majborough looked very impressive last time out, and people can argue, oh well, obviously Sergino's has only run one race, blah blah blah. So, listen, I mean, and I've seen it on Twitter or on X, today. People coming out saying, oh well, Sergino's not a 164 horse on his debut run. And I actually agree. I think 164 could be a little bit too high first time. But when you consider that he's beaten Ballyburn, who was favourite for the Arkle prior to the race, and who everybody thought was going to be the best next thing, to do what he's done, and by the way, take Ballyburn out of the race, and he's beaten the next horse by 33.5 lengths. So it was impressive. Do you know what I mean? It was impressive, and I think he's probably rightly so 10 to 11 for the Arkle.
I think he's definitely the right favourite, and there might still be some value in that price. Crazy enough, we'll see what Masborough does. If that race, if he kind of falls in a hole or whatever happens, he maybe just sneaks by. I think Sergino will go even shorter, won't he?
If Madrid flops, you could be looking at what, 1 to 2.
Be crazy, wouldn't it?
8 to 15, yeah, absolutely mental, absolutely mental. Right, we'll stick with the novices, and I know we're sort of scattergunning approaching here, but we'll go on to the Paddy Power Future Champion Novices Hurdle 2 miles. Romeo Coolio returned back to winning ways. He's now gone back to the head of the Supreme market. And obviously, you were originally keen on him, Bo. Then obviously sort of went a bit cold on him. Has this now put you back into liking him for the Supreme? Do you think now he's obviously come back and he's now part of the Supreme picture?
In a normal year, I'd say no, because I think the race was a bit crap and the horses in behind weren't very good. You look at the Supreme picture and what is there really there? That's the thing this year, is I'm not sure there's that many top quality animals in there. And I know he's beaten in the Royal Bond, but that form doesn't look that good now with that the winner running in a handicap and not really running much of a race.
I think the weird thing with this, boy, is that normally by this time of year, we've normally got definitely one, if not two, horses that have really gripped it like scruff at neck, the 2 mile novice division. Normally from Willis or something like that, there's normally something that you're thinking, right, here we go. This is going to be a very decent animal, and I don't think we've got that at the minute.
Well, the favourite we still haven't seen. We didn't see until just before the summer. So you'd have to have question marks there. Not entered in sort of any in the Lawlers and Nays coming up in the new year. So we're not going to see him for at least a week or so. So you'd have some concerns there. But yeah, I mean, Romeo Coolio did it really well, albeit question the form. But he can only beat what's in front of him. And yeah, I mean, maybe he's a Supreme winner in the waiting. I think this just reeks of a year where there could be a shock, to be honest. A bit like a year where what was the crazy Gordon horse called?
The one
that was tipped up at 66s or whatever. Yeah, I'm sure everyone knows. So yeah, I just think it could be a shock. There could be a shock there. Yeah, it's looking like a really weak market. But Romeo Coolio, he was as impressive as he could be. I don't know why, but I've just always thought that horse needs a bit more of a trip. I've always thought since the bumper last year that he wants to go up in trip slightly. But yeah, it doesn't look like that's going to happen, does it?
I thought we might see him go up in trip for 1 year rather than stick at 2 miles. But I think he deserves, doesn't he, to, I suppose, chance his arm now at the Supreme. You can't say it. LeBake, that's it.
LeBake, yeah.
That's the horse.
Yeah.
LeBake.
Well done.
I knew it couldn't as I was speaking, but yeah, LeBake. But yeah, like you say, he probably deserves his opportunity to have a go. One horse that did run, which I haven't actually got it written down to talk about, probably because I can't say the name, but Cade Dethay, is that what you say? I think that ran obviously won a JP horses. That's as short as best price now. 12 to 1 for the Supreme. Now, I put up on our socials. It didn't scream Supreme to me when I saw it run. And also know a lot of people came back straight at me and said, yeah, but you need to try and win a Supreme. And I get all that. I just didn't. I don't know. I didn't feel like I was looking at a Supreme winner.
Yeah, I think he was doing the donkey work out front, and when the Bromhead horse came to him, I think he pulled away quite comfortably. I wouldn't really like to call which way they'd go with him. I think it depends on what else they've got. Let's see what you like, that Kel Histoire. Let's see what he does in the next couple of days. Because with JP, they're going to likely split their best ones up. I was impressed with him though. I thought that was a good performance. He's got a weird leg action. But he's a big stamp of a horse. He's a beautiful looking horse. And I think that Cocktail Divan's a very nice horse, a nice type. I saw some people saying that we might have the Supreme and the Ballymore winners running against each other in that race. And until we see either of them next time out, we're not going to really know what the form's like. But I was impressed with him. He was obviously, I thought he was pretty short for the Supreme before that even ran. I backed him. I think the week after his fall at about 25-1 because he ran in a maiden and fell. And then he'd been backed into about 14-1 before the off, which I was a bit surprised about for the Supreme, considering there wasn't really much on offer for him in terms of form lines. So someone likes him.
Yeah, and there's been some good horses that have fallen first time out, aren't there, that have come back and looked well over hurdles. Stateman being one of them. So no, like you say, probably one to watch for next time out. While we're sort of flirting with the Supreme and the Turners Novice, as it's now called, in terms of horses to and from, Potts Charm won the Formby over 2 miles at Aintree. Was quite a weird race because you couldn't see most of it because of the fog. So I can't really say he ran well or not. I can only say that he won the race and looked like he'd won the race well at the end. That's literally all I can say about it. I'm not too sure, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Twiston Davis has come out and said now that he's going to go for the Turners Novices. Is that right? I think I've read.
Yeah, he came out and said he's not going to enter in for either of the other 2 races. He's only going to enter in for the Turners, and he won't run again until then. Just touching on Potter's Charm, I've not hidden my feelings for this horse. When we've talked about him, I absolutely love him. I think he's a great bet in the Turners. I'm not sure how much shorter he'll go or how much shorter he'll go off. But I saw Twister was talking about the reasoning behind why they went to Aintree, and they just felt like the last day his jumping was a little bit cumbersome, so they wanted to bring him back to 2 miles to try and sharpen him up for Cheltenham. And I thought that was a brilliant idea. And not that we could see much of it, they said it worked. So I'm just going to take their word on that. But I really, really like him. And I'm sure we're going to touch on the new Lion in a second. But I would much rather back Potter's Charm at 10-1 than the new Lion at 100-30, personally.
Yeah. Listen, we'll go straight into it. I mean, obviously, he's now the new Lion is the new favourite for the Turners Novices now. Best price 100-30. The visual obviously couldn't be any more impressive. There's no 2 ways around that. I think obviously horses like Regent Stroll were extremely disappointing. Clearly, obviously, an issue with Paul Nicholls, I think, in certain aspects. It's probably very similar to the William Owens' situation because the race after the Cello in the Waterside won. So there's obviously something with certain horses and obviously not others, but we'll stick obviously to what we're talking about in terms of the new Lion. Dan Skelton very rarely gets excited about horses. He don't like to put pressure on horses. He's done something similar with the new Lion in the interviews that I've seen, but it does seem as though they do hold this horse just a little bit higher than the ones that they've had before.
Well, did you hear they were talking about he's a champion hurdle horse for next year? Did you hear them say that?
Yeah, I did see that, to be fair. I did sort of look at it and think, let's just go year by year. Let's just try and get to the end of this year first, then we can start.
Let's win it for Cheltenham first, and then talk about it. Yeah, so
that's
I mean, but I think this is a funny race to dissect because I would say Regent Stroll just hasn't run his race at all, so it's really hard to get a form line on it. This Wendigo, whilst he's a nice enough horse, I can't imagine he'll be featuring anywhere at Cheltenham. He was beaten pretty much 5 lengths, staying on. But yeah, the big clash you wanted to see was Regent Stroll versus the new Lion, and we just didn't really get it, to be honest. Regent Stroll never really got into the race, was way too keen, and then sort of by the last couple of hurdles, he just couldn't give any more. So I think it's a difficult one to get a line on, and I just think the 100-30 for Cheltenham is just so short. I know he's given an RPR of 151, which is impressive and right up there with previous winners of the race. I think it's ahead of most of them actually. So it's a solid RPR, but I just didn't see that myself.
No, and I think the other thing as well, which surprised me to see him at 100 to 30, and bear in mind, that's best price 100 to 30. I think there's lower than that as well at the minute out there in the market. But the one horse for me currently in the Turners Novices market, and I'm not trying to deviate from the new line's performance at all here, but the Jasmine DeVoe form line at this moment in time is just getting better and better and better and better. And I don't think there's a prayer that Jasmine DeVoe goes for the supreme based on his jumping. He just can't physically do it at that rate. You'd expect. I mean, I think he's best priced 8 to 1. I find it difficult to have him at 8 to 1 on the new line at 100 to 30, even though he's only ran once. I just find that difficult in my mind.
Yeah, we'll see Jasmine on New Year's Day, won't we? We'll see Jasmine DeVoe then. So he's favourite for that. The one thing I would say about Jasmine DeVoe, yes, almightily talented. He's a little horse with a huge engine, but he just needs to jump better, and that's what we want to see on in Nace. We want to see him jumping better. If he jumps better, he's got a brilliant chance in the Ballymore Turners, whatever you want to call it. But if he doesn't jump, if he jumps exactly the same, I just can't give him much of a hope. I don't think you can jump like that around Cheltenham and win a Grade 1. It's just not. I just don't think it's possible. So I'd like to see his jumping improve. But yeah, I totally agree with you. Through form lines, he currently has the best form in the race.
And I think as well, it's probably worth mentioning as well with Kopek de Ball coming out. Very similar performance to Jasmine DeVoe in terms of looks a bit rusty on his jumping. Finished the race really well, and obviously at a time where Willie Mullins is having a little bit of trouble. So I think you can probably. You can probably put a bit more of extra on his performance, I think, as well. He's currently sat at 14 as well for the Turners.
He was very impressive. Well, his jumping wasn't impressive, but his engine was impressive. Paddy obviously was really impressed with him, but then Paddy also told us that State Man was going to get our Christmas money back, which ultimately didn't happen. So
I think it's one of those very, like I say, very similar to the Nichols Yard. I think there's clearly horses that are struggling with whatever's going around, be it a virus. It's a bit like Salvatore Monday. My understanding is I think Salvatore Monday's sick. I don't think he's injured. So if that is the case, again, you just don't sort of know what's going around the yard. So it could be affecting certain horses more than other horses. So I think whatever happened, I mean, like you say, look at the JP horse we were discussing before. That's obviously Mullins' horse, and that came out and looked well. So I think it's obviously affecting some and not affecting the others. But we'll move on. The Cato Star Novices chase. The Jukebox Man came out and looked well again. He's a horse that I am really sort of taking a shine to. He just doesn't seem to miss a beat, and he just loves jumping fences. I think he's currently 7 to 1 for the Browns at the moment.
I think this year in the Browns, I think they'll ride him differently. I think they would ride him more like one of the classy animals in the race that you would normally see, like how a Mullins runner is ridden, sort of prominent but not dictating the pace, and definitely not 20 lengths ahead of everything. So I think he'd be fine with staying. I also think this horse is really special. I was really impressed. He was gritty at the end when he needed to be. I think Highland is a good horse, and he's definitely one that's on my radar for the National Hunt Chase at Cheltenham. I think he's a really likeable sort. But yeah, I just think the Jukebox Man's jumping is just going to win him whatever he wants at Cheltenham. I think he's so clever for a novice in front of a fence. And, I think he's got all of the ability to make up to be a Gold Cup horse next year. I was thoroughly impressed. It was probably the performance I was most impressed with over the Christmas period, to be honest. I know that's quite a big sound because we had some almighty clashes, but I was just really, really impressed with him. And I know I've put up Dancing City in the Browns in our Ante Post series. I'm seriously worried about that because I think this lad is just different gravy.
Same day as the Jukebox Man, we had the King George, which it's strange to have the King George so far down the pecking order when we're talking through the Christmas racing, but really good performance by Banbridge. I thought, and I have to get this in early doors. I thought the ride by Paul Townend was superb on Banbridge. I think to get the fractions right to how he rode it to perfection. Because I mean, Ile Francais was out in front. It was leaping. It was doing everything right in front. And at one point, Banbridge was almost like third last. So for him to get them fractions correct on a horse which everyone was a bit concerned about the stamina, I tip my hat to Paul on that one. I says to you in our little group message, Ile Francais, I would love to see this horse in a Ryanair from the front and just go off and just jump, and I think it'd do really well. I don't know if that's going to be a possibility. I'm not too sure. But we'll touch on Banbridge first. I think Banbridge actually now is the favourite for the Ryanair. I think, is it 4-1? I think best price possibly. Let's start with Banbridge. 6 is it? Sorry, 6-1. Let's start with Banbridge because there's an argument to say that he could have probably beat Energumene first time out, and obviously now won the King George. Are we seeing a horse that is just actually continue to progress as it's getting older?
I think so. I think with that form line through Energumene, he was going to run a great race there. Now being an 8-year-old, he's coming sort of more into his peak. He'll be 9 next year, so he'll be sort of peaking as this season as a chaser, really. So yeah, I think he probably is getting better with age. He's not one that's really on my Cheltenham radar, to be honest, because I'm not sure he's ever really liked it. I remember an interview last season with Joseph where he was talking about it. And he'd be one that I'd be a bit windy on if they go to Cheltenham. I'm not sure if they've said anything or if they just take him to Aintree. So, yeah, he's one that I'm not really backed. But, yeah, you said great ride by Paul Townend, and it absolutely was. He got the fractions perfect. And, yeah, Francais would be great to watch in a Ryanair going out from the front like that. The one that I've got my eye on at the moment, Grey Dawning, obviously Cheltenham Festival winner last year, pulled up in this. I think they've got to change their plans now. Obviously, they were thinking he was a Gold Cup horse. I think it's clear that he's not. So he might be interesting in a Ryanair. He's 16-1. It's not ideal off the back of a pulled up. I think on the day he should be shorter than that because I think he's got a lot of ability. So, yeah, difficult race to dissect at the moment, the Ryanair, isn't it?
I mean, horses at the minute are in that betting. Gaelic Warrior, obviously, you've obviously got 7. We'll touch on him just in a second. El Fabiola, 8. We still haven't seen him yet. Factor File, we'll touch on the Savills Chase again in a moment, but he's now 7-1 second favourite. It's a bit of a minefield at this moment in time. Is the Ryanair. But while we're talking about it, let's just jump onto the Gaelic Warrior race. We said, obviously, in our Christmas preview with Johnny Deneen that we thought he might be vulnerable first time out of open company into open company, and it proved the case, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've kind of always said he's not a 2-miler, and if he is a 2-miler, it's on bottomless ground. Is essentially what I was saying, and it kind of looked that way. You can make excuses, I suppose, for what Paddy was saying about he let the 28-1 shot go because he thought he'd come back, but he was race fit. So he's got up and finished second in the end, which is what I wanted to see really, a staying on second, and he has beaten everything else in the race. But John Bond's not losing any sleep over that, I wouldn't think. And I just still don't think that Gaelic Warrior's jumping is even of a 2-miler. I think he's a little bit slow over them. And John Bond, that will play into John Bond's hands or hooves. So yeah, I'm pretty pleased with my docket on the Ryanair. I've obviously managed to get some cover on the Champion Chase by now, but yeah, the Ryanair's the main one for me, and I can definitely see him going that way. I saw Ruby was saying that if he's going to run over 2 miles, he needs a lot of juice in the ground. So yeah, good to soft at Cheltenham. I think Ryanair's the race.
Yeah, I think they'll. Again, only my opinion. I think they'll go to probably the DRF 2 mile at the DRF, see how he gets on there, and they'll probably make a decision after that. I think if he wins that race, then they'll probably have to go for the Champion Chase. If he don't win that, then I think they'll probably end up going to the Ryanair. We'll stick over with Ireland. We'll look at the Savills and Galopin Des Champs, who, I mean, he's becoming an absolute legend, isn't he? Of the staying chasing division. I mean, he's up there with some of the best in terms of when you're talking about that sort of division. If he wins another Gold Cup, then there's an argument to say that he is the best. But I know you've got a bit of a different take on this, haven't you? Really, in terms of looking at Cheltenham, looking at the Gold Cup. So I won't say any more.
Yeah, I mean, Galopin Des Champs, he's a legend of the sport. I think if he wins a third Gold Cup, I think he probably is the best horse of all time. I'd have him very close to that at the moment anyway, winning 2, and the way he's won them as well. Mad to think that we were backing him in a Martin Pipe all them years back, and he's gone to win 2 Gold Cups and looked that impressive in the Savills this year as an 8-year-old. I'm still pretty keen on the chances of Factor File at Cheltenham, to be honest. I think I know he was beating 7 lengths. He was pretty free. I thought turning for home, there was a chance where it looked like he might do him, but he just kind of emptied a little bit. Galloped onto the line pretty nicely to beat Gentleman's Game by 5 lengths. But yeah, I just think with each of these runs, I think Galloping's going to slightly be regressing. Obviously, didn't beat his rivals as far this year in the Savills Chase. It's not really a stick to beat him with, but yeah, I just think it's going to take its toll. And I wasn't that impressed with him in the Gold Cup last year. I thought when he jumped the last, he didn't pull away like I'd want to see him pull away. And I just wonder if another hard season will take its toll on the big one in March. But we've got the Irish Gold Cup to come. That's at the DRF, I believe, isn't it? So hopefully we'll see them match up then. But yeah, Fatafile just ran a bit free. But with less racing and age on his side, I would fancy him to beat Galloping de Champ at Cheltenham. But all this talk of him going to the Ryanair, I just don't. I'm just going to rubbish that. I don't think that's the race for him.
Willie's already said that he'll take his best horses to the Irish Gold Cup because obviously he respects it and all that. So the likelihood is that you probably will see Gallopin versus Factorfile Pat. That will happen. And like you say, it all depends on the conditioning of Gallopin de Champs, I think, in how we can go from the Irish Gold Cup then to Cheltenham. He's done it in the past. We've seen it, so he can do it. And it's just now all about how much of the ability he can retain as he's got older in between the races. The only thing that is in his favour, I think, to try and win a third Gold Cup is he probably only has Factorfile to beat. I think the 1-2 from the Savills could very easily be the 1-2 either way come March. I mean, you've got, Jericho Loam obviously still in there at 16-1. Monty Star, who I think is out on New Year's Day as well, 20-1. Banbridge probably won't run in it. Spillane's Tower, 33s, and Grey Dawning, Corbett's Crop. I mean, I've never seen a Gold Cup market like it, where you've got two horses at the front, which is 6-4 and 4-1, and then it's 16-1, bar those two. So that's in his favour, where I don't think at the minute we've got an out-and-out superstar coming through. And everyone might have been Factorfile, but I don't think he is as good as what everyone thought he was, in my opinion. I think he's probably just below that superstar level. But rightly so, he's the second favourite at 4-1. But it won't surprise me if the 1-2 from the Savills wasn't the 1-2 at the Gold Cup. And that's both in the Irish and in the English. It wouldn't surprise me one little bit. Any other ones that we've not touched on that you've been impressed with, Bo, before we finish?
The only other one I'd probably mention would be Imperial Pass in Limerick. He was very impressive. Showed a lot of class to win the Grade 1 there. So I thought he was really good. It'll be interesting to see what they do. Then Willie's come out and basically thrown his toys out the pram. I think he's probably a bit miffed about the fact that the Grade 1 over Christmas, over 2 miles, I think it was, has been taken out as well. So that left him having to take Gino on with Ballyburn. So I think he's just probably a bit miffed with the whole racing calendar, pretty much. So he threw his toys out of the pram and said there's nowhere for Imperial Pass to go at Cheltenham. That will be proof in the pudding. We'll see what he does there. But I think he's a very, very talented horse. And, maybe he could compress the weights, make a few run out of the handicap at the 2.5 novice handicap. That would be interesting. But he was very impressive. And also I thought Final Demand as well on the same card. He's one that I've got my eye on for the Albert Bartlett. That was a maiden hurdle won by 15 lengths. Won it as easy as you can. He was only 4-7, but so there was enough horses to make you think Willie's worth firing, but then there was also some really lame performances that make you think there's a bit of a bug going round. So
yeah, there's a lot of horses I think that I've put in to watch next time out, rather than actually put me flag to the mast and said, look, this is the one to follow. There's definitely lots. I was absolutely gutted. Well, I wasn't gutted at the same time with, obviously, one of our horses to follow that we put up last month was Sequestered, that won at 10-1, won the handicap chase. I was just a bit gutted as to how far he won. I always thought, I always thought he had a good 3-mile handicap chase in him, and like I said, I put it out to his followers and stuff that I did think he was going to win a big handicap chase. I just thought it might have been maybe either at the DRF or the Festival. Now, listen, it might be the fact that they might think they've got some more in him. So they're not bothered that he has won by that much. But I mean, I think he was he 125? I'm trying to have a quick. I'm sure he was. I think the 125 he was at official rating on Sunday when he won. So the likelihood is that's going to go flying up now, I would imagine. But it could put him into some of the bigger races at the festivals now, some of these handicaps.
Yeah.
So I am going to stay with him, even though, like I say, yeah, that's it. Yeah, he was rated 125. So he's going to go up for that, I would imagine. I don't actually know what he's been put up to, but obviously he will be going up to something. Let's see if I can have a look. See what is that now. Yes, he's been put up to 137. So he's been put up £12 for that win. Now, whether he can handle that, I'm not too sure. But yeah, right.
The other one I'd just like to mention was the Leopardstown Juvenile hurdle, the Grade 2, which Lossiemouth won a couple of years ago. The Gavin Cromwell Hello Neighbour won debut over hurdles straight into a Grade 2. They obviously think a lot of him. Gavin said he did a lot wrong, but was able to pick up in the end. It was a bit of a weird race. We couldn't see much. But I would say there was definitely some non-tries in there, if I'm allowed to say that on air. I think that Naturally Nimble is definitely one I've got on my Boodle shortlist, particularly with Willie de Huel bombing out again. I can't imagine they might be a bit more lenient with him now, the British handicapper, after seeing his performance. So, yeah, he was in fourth. He was giving weight away. He's definitely one that I'm interested in, beating 8.5 lengths for the Boodles.
Yeah, and also I'll just quickly sound the trumpet again, because I did tip up the second in that race as well each way. Lady Vega Alan, that came in at 10-1, but I think we tipped it up at 28-1. That's probably another horse just to keep on side of as well. Obviously its first run over in her first run in Ireland for Willie Mullins as well, and he got beaten a short head by Hello Neighbour, so that might be one to keep an eye on as well. So, right, Bo, thanks very much for that. We've obviously flown through quite a bit, and we could have probably gone through a little bit more, but we tried to keep it as tight as we can with these, rather than speaking for 2 hours at a time. We'll come back again probably next week now, I think, rather than putting another Ante Post show out there, just because there's been that much going on. We'll try and let things die down and settle down a little bit. And we'll catch up with everybody probably next week after New Year's as finished and stuff like that. We've got Trials Day coming up, haven't we, obviously, at Cheltenham. We've got a lot of things coming up as well. So we'll probably catch up with everybody in a week or so.
Yeah. Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah, big Happy New Year. Thanks, everyone, obviously, for all the follows and things like that. Please follow us on his YouTube, subscribe, and obviously on the Apple podcast as well. So thanks, everyone, for the support. Happy New Year, and here's to a big 2025.